Why should me and other so-called Negroes go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us? And I will say directly, no, I will not go.
No one would have ever imagined that one man's words could affect the outcome of an American war. Despite being an international boxing icon, Muhammad Ali's commitment to peace as a minister for the Nation of Islam caused him to refuse induction into the army. Although his conviction resulted in controversial and negative consequences, Ali became the first national figure to speak out against the war in Vietnam, which was a major turning point during the Vietnam War and ignited the anti-war movement because of his stand and the rebellious youth protesting against an unwanted war. The Vietnam War originally started in 1940 when Japan invaded parts of Vietnam by communist leader Ho Chi Minh. The United States' involvement began after supporting France due to the policy of containment announced after World War II, which was a commitment designed to prevent expansion of communism.
At the time, there was a theory, the domino theory, that if you lost Southeast Asia, it would go down. At the time, it was actually sort of valid, but probably the real issue is that it was in the middle of the Cold War. The United States ended up having to ante up in Vietnam just to demonstrate to the Russians that they were prepared to go to whatever lengths that were necessary to ensure the safety of the country.
Rumors began to spread that Ali, born as Cassius Clay, had joined the Nation of Islam, which at the time was perceived as a racist or communist group. The Nation of Islam was a Muslim group led by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who acknowledged faith as a vehicle to promote black separatism. Malcolm X was the primary person who preached Clay about the religion, causing him to join in 1964. His affiliation was kept a secret because he feared it would affect his first heavyweight match. On February 25, 1964, Cassius Clay fought Sonny Liston for the heavyweight title and won during the 7th round.
You're gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Ah! Rumble, young man, rumble. Ah! That's what we're gonna do.
The following day, Clay announced he was a member of the Nation of Islam and converted his name to Muhammad Ali. Many fans and critics were disappointed, confused, and angered by his statement because his public speaking caused hatred with whites and pride with blacks.
He won. He became victorious. He became the champ. They knew that as soon as if people began to identify with Cassius and the type of image he was creating, they were going to have trouble out of these Negroes because they'd have Negroes walking around the streets saying, "I'm the greatest."
The Gulf of Tonkin incident sparked America's entry into the war. President Johnson signed the Tonkin Gulf Resolution on August 10, 1964, which authorized the president to take whatever measures necessary to deal with communist aggression in Vietnam. By 1965, the United States had sent combat troops to prevent the government of South Vietnamese from collapsing into a communist country. The first protest occurred the same year when the draft of 3,000 soldiers a month had increased to 33,000. Once drafted, Americans with higher levels of education were granted draft deferments and often given military office jobs. About 80% of American ground troops came from lower classes, such as Latinos and African Americans. The average age of an American soldier serving in Vietnam was 19, which was 7 years younger than World War II. Americans were legally old enough to fight and die, but were not permitted to vote. Such criticism led to the 26th Amendment, which granted suffrage to 18-year-olds. The Supreme Court would be the greatest challenge Ali would face. Ali was classified as 1Y, which implicated he was not qualified for service in armed forces. In 1966, with the war in Vietnam growing, the percentile required by the military lowered from 30 to 15. Therefore, being reclassified as 1A made Ali eligible for draft. Refusing to be inducted into the Army due to religious bounds caused a significant turning point.
He didn't do it, for anybody else but himself, because he didn't believe that if he couldn't even get served in a restaurant in his hometown at that time, why should he go across the country and fight when it wasn't equal here?
Ali was immediately being questioned by reporters. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong" became headline news across the nation. Ali requested exemption from the draft. However, this time, his plea requested a conscientious objector status, but was denied. Civil rights leader Martin Luther King began to speak out against the war after Ali had influenced him. April 1967, King led an anti-war demonstration of 3,000 people in New York called Beyond Vietnam in order to defend Ali's religious stand.
No matter what you think of Mr. Muhammad Ali's religion, you certainly have to admire his courage.
Most of the reporters failed to understand Ali's importance beyond the ring. Without the support he deserved from the media, a relationship began to develop with Howard Cosell, and Ali utilized interviews to promote himself. On April 28, 1967, he continued his conscientious objector claim in Houston, Texas. 1 hour after his refusal, the Athletic Commission suspended his boxing license. Ali was stripped from his title, forbidden to fight in all 50 states, and his passport was confiscated.
9 top Negro athletes meet with Cassius Clay to discuss his anti-draft stand. They include Bill Russell, Lou Alcindor, and former pro footballer Jimmy Brown. Says Brown after the meeting, the champ is sincere in his religious beliefs. He believes in his religion, and his stand is based wholly on that. Clay's induction refusal cost him his title, and he faces a possible 5-year prison sentence.
Ali remained a minister for the Nation of Islam and made money speaking on college campuses or Broadway.
During that time, it was very difficult for Muhammad because he really didn't earn an income. And not a lot of people would go through that same experience of losing millions of dollars. And I don't see too many athletes would be willing to stand up as courageous and as bold as Muhammad Ali did.
America was slowly emerging to oppose the war and revolutionize the era of anti-war, causing support for Ali to grow. The United States' involvement in war caused a widespread anger of people, such as students protesting and sit-ins to force politicians to recognize the war was unpopular. The anti-war movement grew into an unstoppable force, pressuring American leaders to reconsider its commitment. Pending the exile, Ali's popularity grew larger as a political and social humanitarian and became an icon for millions of Americans who disapproved of war. In 1970, the New York State Supreme Court ordered his boxing license reinstated, and the same year, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned his conviction for evading the draft. Atlanta, Georgia finally granted Ali a license to box. On March 8, 1971, Ali fought Joe Frazier to regain the heavyweight title. Unfortunately, he lost during the 15th round, which was the first loss of his professional boxing career. Ali managed a remarkable comeback against George Foreman. The Rumble in the Jungle became Ali's vengeance for the title he never intentionally lost. The Thriller in the Manila was one of Ali's most memorable international fights against Frazier and won.
That was pretty much going to be it. I mean, had he won the fight, he might have defended the title a few times, but he really had nothing left as far as what went on in the ring. So it was pretty much the exclamation point at the end of the chapter on what these men had accomplished.
Ali ultimately retired on December 21, 1981 with a record of 56 wins, 36 knockouts, 5 losses, and 3 heavyweight champion titles. 3 years later, Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome and was honored to light the torch at the 1996 Olympics. The courage to stand during a divided, controversial period in America will honor Ali as the greatest conscientious objector. Ali was a primary change for the sport of boxing and stunned the world with never-before-seen reflexes, speed, and individual techniques. Although Ali was stripped from his title, he realized his religion was furthermore important. Continuing to pray 5 times a day indicates the Nation of Islam remains valuable today. Few people have the ability to fight alone against the United States during the peak of their professionalism. Being the first national figure to speak out against the war was indeed a powerful turning point, which eventually influenced people to protest and the United States to withdraw from the war in 1973, causing Muhammad Ali to be remembered for his courageous stand.
I am the king of the world. Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I took up the world.